Living my bucolic life, free healthy city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sell and spin, and move the horses into the barn. Then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses. The view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.
Hello again. So while I am waiting for my computer to do its thing to process the jacket video, I'm going to make a hat. Faith in my comments, love you Faith, said you should make a hat. And I was thinking, I made a little pillbox hat once and it turned out really cute. Can't find the pattern, but I think I remember how to do it. So I'm just going to walk us through it. I've got some extra materials and we're just going to make a little hat. So it's kind of different, but I hope you like it. Here we go. So I'm going to start out making a circle that is 6 inches in diameter. Okay, so I'm moving my little compass to 3 inches here. Making sure it will fit in my very expensive box. And draw a circle. Okay, so I want my hat to be about 23 inches when I'm done with it. That's going to give me enough to go around my head plus a little bit of ease. You know, we're going to make it 23 and a half. I'm just going to tape that just to hold it. So if I put that around my little 6-inch circle here, I can see that I need to have another circle that's going to end right about here. This is not scientific at all, but you know what? It's how we're going this morning. So I'm going to make another little circle here, and that's going to give me an oval, the shape I want for the top of my little pillbox hat. So first thing, I'm going to go ahead, what I need to do is just draw a line here connecting those two tops and these two tops, and this oval is my top. So I'm going to cut that one out first. Okay, so I've got my little oval here, and the next thing I need to decide is how tall I want the crown of my hat to be. And I think I'm going to start with 2 inch. I can trim that down if it looks a little too tall, but I'm going to start with 2 inch. And since I need at least 24 inches to go around and overlap a little bit, and I don't quite have that inside of the folds of my box, I'm going to cut 2 strips and tape those together. I have some of this very papery thin medical tape here that sticks like crazy, and I'm just going to use that to tape them together because I know there's absolutely no way it's going to come off, and it's going to hold it. I want to make sure that I can roll my crown into the same size as my little top here. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and remeasure that just to make sure I'm not losing my mind. And yeah, that is 23 and a half. So you know what, just to be safe, I'm going to give myself an extra 1/4 inch here. And overlap this one and tape it, and I'm going to have my little crown. And then I can try this on my head before I go any further just to make sure it's going to fit. Okay, I tried it on and it's actually going to fit really well, so I'm very happy with this shape. So I need to cut one more piece of cardboard out, another circle, well, oval I should say, which is basically going to be this size plus about 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do first is draw an outline of this one, and then come back and just kind of draw my little 1/2 inch, or this is actually closer to 5/8, all the way around to give me a place to cut. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way around and then cut it out on this line. So now I am going to come back and clip from the outside to this line about every 1/2 inch all the way around. And now go all the way around and fold them in so that we can test it out on the crown and make sure it's going to fit. Okay, so let's just try it out and see if it's going to fit in here. I'm not going to glue anything right now. Oops. Let's try it one more time. Very snug. Very snug, but it does fit, I think. So, just to make sure I'm not going to have it bowed or something, I think I'm going to come, I'm going to loosen up one of these and spread it out about 1/4 inch because I don't want this to be doing one of those things in it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the tapes here, and then we'll be ready to go on to the next step. So there's all kinds of ways you can do this. You can sew all the pieces together and form it over. You can glue gun things. It's kind of up to you. I am actually going to be using this stuff. Years ago, there was a craft store that was going out of business, and I bought several of these. And it's like a huge sheet of double-sided tape. And this is the little label. It says archival double tack 18 by 24. You know, if that helps you, it's probably at craft stores. Anyhow, what I'm going to be doing is using this to adhere my fabric to here. So this is not in any way supposed to be, oh, this is how a professional does it. No, not at all. This is how Marie in her sewing room does it. So with that said, this is going to be what my lining is attached to. So I need to have one of these. And I'm also going to need to have one of these that my outside fabric is going to attach to right here. And then I'm going to come back and I am going to cut two 2-inch strips of this because this is 24 inches long. So it should be enough to go all the way around this on the inside and the outside. Okay, so this stuff is really old, but so I hope it's still sticky. And I hope this works, you know. This will be exciting for me if it does. So I kind of flattened these little notches out, and I cut this slightly bigger than just the top, and I'm just going to try to center it on there. It has a wrinkle I need to press out. And pull the paper backing off. Looks very sticky, which is nice. So I'm using more of this green to do the main part of the hat. And I'm just going to flip this over here. Like that. Press it down really good, and I'm going to cut around this hat. Really good here. All right. So this is the top of my little hat, and of course the little notches are not cut through that fabric, so I am just going to come back really quick and reclip it with that fabric on it so I can get those, so that way when I fold it, the fabric will fold with it. So my sticky stuff goes about halfway down the tab, so it's enough to keep it wanting to work its way in. Okay, so I have my top of my hat all clipped and everything. I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to put my adhesive strip to the outside of my cardboard. So I'm just going to kind of roll it like this to try to make sure I keep it covered in sticky stuff. Okay, so my brim, or not my brim, my crown is 2 inches wide. So I am going to be cutting my strip of fabric at least 1 inch wider so that I have enough on both sides to be able to bend it in. So I'm going to be cutting mine at 3 inches. So just wrapping it around, I can see I have plenty of fabric to go around, and it's overlapping about an inch or so that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and pull off my protective paper so it's just sticky stuff on here. Start about in the middle. It's about equal amount on both sides here. And rolling it down one side. And then back down the other side. Yay. All right, so I got it covered. So let me go ahead and push. I had some wrinkles in that adhesive stuff. I'm just going to try to push it out. So at this point here where it overlaps, I don't need that much bulk. I am going to trim it down just a hair. You know what? I'm just going to put a little piece of double stick tape right here and push it straight down, and I think that will hold it. So I got a little strip of tape here. I'm going to try to put it along the edge, just like that. Take off the paper and just press it down. Alrighty, before I actually tuck them, I'm going to cut them, and I'm cutting up to about 1/8 of an inch close to the cardboard, not all the way. It's going to make it easier for them to want to hold their position. Okay, and I'm going to use this. This is actually the double-sided tape they use for putting on window insulation, you know. I get stuff wherever I can, but it's very sticky, so that's nice. So again, it has sticky on two sides. This side has a paper, and I am just going to run it right along this top edge all the way around here, so that when I push these over, they're going to want to stick to it. And start pressing these down. Now what I would do is press every other one first. Okay, and with that, then you can come down and press the ones in the middle, and that way if there's some overlapping that happens, it's all good. Alright, so this next part might get a little tricky, because what I need to do is slide this in here, and I'm going to need to put some adhesive on the inside of what we just flipped down, so that it's going to want to stick to it, like right here. What is that? So what I'm going to have to very carefully do is come back, and I am going to put another row of super sticky tape right here, and then very carefully put my hat in right there. Okay, so I kind of want my seam to be on this side, so I'm going to make sure I try to match that up with like the side of my brim as I very carefully try to form this in there. I am just batting 1,000 today. Twice I thought that my camera was on and running with the microphone, and it wasn't. So, quick recap. I got this all set in, and it actually fit very, very snugly, so much so that at one point on the edge it was in a little bit, but that's fine. So what I did then, which I thought I was recording, but I wasn't, is I took another strip of my double-sided tape, put it on a scrap of lining fabric, and stuck it on, and cut around that, you know, with extra on both sides. And then, you know, peeled off the sticky on the other side, and I just loosely on the inside here, I pressed it all the way around, okay? Now I'm going to have extra in the middle, which is good. I want that. And I had extra poking out here, all right? About 1/2 inch all the way around. So after that, I came back and I trimmed this edge. Actually, this side is kind of sticking out a little bit here, to the same height that the cardboard is. Right, like that. Okay, so it's at the same level as the cardboard here. Okay, and now it's time to start. I'm going to trim this outside edge right here. And I'm going to sew it. So what I'm going to do is there's one place where, right here, where it's my seam. And I'm, excuse me, going to be placing an extra piece of my bias tape I had over this edge. And just put a couple more clips here, just so you can see. I'll clip it all the way around. And because I'm probably going to be putting a fancy button or something right here, I'm not going to worry too much about how it looks at the overlap. But I'm going to go ahead and stitch it this way. Now, since I only have a flatbed machine, I have to set it on my machine this way and roll it. If you have a free arm, you can probably do it this way. Right, so I got it sewn on, and I was just playing it very safe, and it's sewn quite low. I don't have my stitching anywhere near the edge, but you know what? For this hat, that is fine, and it's actually making it nice and sturdy. So before I go any farther, I need to deal with the top up here. So again, with my scrap of lining, so I'm going to go ahead and trim, again, about an inch outside of my sticky part all the way around. So I kind of screwed up my plan because what I was going to do was actually not stick this to the lining. I was just going to put the adhesive on the cardboard, put the lining loose in the front of it, and just push it in and have the sticky on the back of the cardboard. Secure everything. But since I've done this anyway, it is what it is. I am going to go ahead and cut one more circle from my sticky tacky paper here. Before I attach anything to this cardboard, I want to make sure it's still going to fit because I've added so many layers of things in here. It looks like it's a little snug. So I'm going to trim some off from this edge up here until I can be sure that my cardboard's going to fit in there nicely. Now my little top is going to fit in there well. So first thing I'm going to do is stick my adhesive to it. Stick this on here, trying to center it in there. Okay. So now that it's on here, I'm going to trim it a little bit better around the edges because I don't want too much extra fabric floating around in there. So now I'm going to put this piece of adhesive on this side of it before I fold these in. Well, that's close enough. All right. So I can peel this paper off. Like that. And now I'm going to come around the outside edge. Everything's so sticky. And tuck these in like this. So the center of this is still very sticky, and I'm going to use that to glue it to the top of my hat. So I should be able to pop it in here and just have it stick. Pushing nice and hard. Yay, it's going to stick. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is put one more row of my bias tape around this top edge. And again, if I'm starting everything over here. Now, I can't sew this, so I am going to glue it. But since it is a bias tape, it should be able to form around this edge nicely, like that. Okay. First thing is to make sure your tape is going to work with the width. I think it is. Actually, I'm going to let it peek over the top, kind of like that, just to be sure. So, again, this is a hat not meant to be washed and hopefully not worn in the rain. Otherwise, you know, cardboard and tape may come apart. And if I was really doing a professional job, I would take a couple hair combs and I would be sewing them in on the sides here so that on the inside so that when I put it on I could wedge those hair combs into my head so it wouldn't come off, but yeah. I don't have them handy and I'm just not going to. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape off, the lining, and starting at the same general area, like here's where my bias tape ended, here's this thing, same general area. I'm going to be putting my bias tape edge near the edge of my window insulation tape all the way around. Yeah, I stuck it to my table. That's not good. Just like that. I'm going to let it very small overlap. I'm afraid I am going to need to use some glue. But before I do that, I want to find what I'm going to put right here on the side. I'll be right back. I need to preface this by saying I have absolutely no idea how this is going to turn out or what it's going to look like, but I'm having fun on craft day here. So what I did was I took a long strip of just this big net, about 5 inches wide, probably about a yard long, and ran some gathering threads on one end here, and I've just tied it so it's going to stay gathered. And I'm going to try to make it into like a little circle, hopefully. Get my threads out of the way here. And I have this little button. It's one of my singles. And I'm just going to put that little button in the middle and probably trim this down some. I don't think it needs to be quite that wide. And put it on my hat. So that's my plan. I'm going to go ahead and with these threads that are just kind of hanging, I'm going to try to stitch this into a permanent circle and stitch my button onto it so then I can just glue the whole thing on at once. I don't like the little strings that can appear with a glue gun, so I'll probably have to go back and just trim those off. But I think it's about the only way to be able to push in this bias tape on the very top edge. So